Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going behind the scenes of a real estate podcast.
Oh, cool.
It's called Real Estate Triumphs, but we're not actually going to be listening to it. Instead, we've
Right.
got the planning document.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to be looking at like the blueprints,
Yeah.
the guest lists, even the marketing strategy.
That's like getting a backstage pass to a concert before the show even starts.
Yeah.
We'll get to see the set list, the lighting, the sound checks, that everything.
Exactly. And in this case, the performance is aimed at, well, aspiring investors, real estate agents, anyone who wants to,
Build wealth through property.
yeah, we're talking rags to riches stories,
Oh, I love this.
insider tips, actionable strategies, all designed to, motivate and inform.
What I find really fascinating is how they're so focused on who they want to reach. They're not
Mhm.
trying to be everything to everyone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They've really zeroed in on that niche, those wanting financial growth through real estate. And from what I've seen, their whole approach is built around that.
Well, their tagline is success stories and strategies from leading investors and agents, and that really comes across in the episode structure.
How so?
Well, they introduce the guest, then dive into their background, but then they jump into what they call the guest's breakthrough moment. Like that pivotal deal or that one decision that really changed the guest's trajectory.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that.
And then the whole episode is focused on their strategies, the obstacles they overcame, and then what advice they have for listeners.
This structure is smart, and I'll tell you why. It really taps into that power of storytelling.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you hear about someone else's struggles and their successes, it's much easier to relate to them and their advice. It's not just some theoretical stuff anymore. It becomes real people achieving real results.
And that leads perfectly into their guest list. I gotta say, it's pretty exciting. Just to give you a taste, we've got an investor who built a multi-million-dollar portfolio starting with very little, a top-performing agent who just dominates their local market, and get this, even a developer who specializes in eco-friendly and sustainable projects.
Wow. That is a diverse lineup.
Yeah, and it's really crucial for keeping things engaging, right? Each guest represents a different part of the real estate world, so they offer a unique perspective, and it's going to appeal to different parts of their audience. Like having that sustainability-focused developer, well, that signals that this podcast, they're tuned in to the current trends and where the industry's going.
It's like they've created this dream team of experts, each with their own secrets to success. And how they plan to interview them is impressive. The questions go way deeper than just surface-level chit-chat.
Oh, give me an example.
Well, one question is,
Yeah.
tell us about a deal that changed your career.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know, right? It really pushes the guest to tell a story, a real turning point, and we get to hear what impact it had. And stories are powerful because they're so relatable and they stick with you.
Absolutely. It's one thing to hear about general principles, but it's a whole other thing to hear how those principles actually worked in a real situation. Another question I love is, what's one habit or mindset shift that contributed most to your success?
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, it's like they're asking for the cheat code to success,
Yeah.
but in a way that shows that it's not just about, tactics, but also having the right mindset and approach.
It's about digging into what they believe, how they think, the habits that make successful people tick. Not just what they do, but how they approach problems.
It's not even just about the content, though, right? They've also clearly put a lot of thought into like the whole presentation of the podcast.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in this day and age, when we're bombarded with content everywhere we look, it's got to be presented well.
It's true. Like when you're looking for a podcast, what makes you actually want to listen to it?
Oh, definitely a catchy title, eye-catching cover art.
Right.
And the description has to really grab you
Yeah.
and make you think, oh, I got to hear this.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where their whole branding and marketing strategy comes in. They're planning to invest in like a professionally designed logo cover art.
Makes sense to me. It's like, the storefront for your podcast.
Mate.
It's got to look good. It's got to represent what you're about.
Right. A bad cover can make even the most interesting content seem totally amateur. They also talk about having, a consistent publishing schedule.
Oh, that's so important, especially with podcasts, right? Your listeners want to know when they can expect new episodes.
Yeah.
Kind of builds that anticipation and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you like a podcast, you want to know when you can get your next fix.
It's like your favorite show on TV. It's on Tuesday nights at 8, you're going to be there. And speaking of reaching those listeners, they have some really savvy ideas for social media and even SEO.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. SEO stands for search engine optimization, right?
Mm.
And It's all about making sure that when people search for stuff related to your topic, your podcast shows up.
Yeah.
Like, let's say someone's searching real estate investing tips.
Yeah.
If they do SEO right, their episodes will probably be right at the top of the results.
That's incredible. It's like this virtual billboard for your podcast,
Yeah,
attracting people who are already looking for that kind of information.
exactly.
They also suggest using guest cross promotion, which seems pretty obvious,
Oh,
right?
totally. It's a win-win,
Yeah.
You get to reach your guest's audience and they get to promote their work to yours.
It's like this built-in network of potential listeners. Now, going back to the guest list for a sec, I'm really fascinated by that investor who built a multi-million-dollar portfolio from almost nothing.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Like a true rags to riches story. I'm sure a lot of people will love that.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. I bet their episode will be full of insights about, overcoming obstacles, getting creative with deals, and, building wealth over time. They've also got that real estate agent who's just killing it in their local market.
Yeah. What's their secret, right? Is it networking? Finding those undervalued properties. Or maybe it's some unique marketing strategy they've got. We can't wait to find out.
Right. There's so much we can learn from someone who's just crushing it like that. And of course, we can't forget the developer focused on eco-friendly projects.
I think that's such a smart move for the podcast. Having a guest like that shows they're on top of things.
Yeah.
They know the industry is changing and they're showcasing the future.
For sure. Sustainability is so important right now, and having an expert talk about that is going to bring in a whole new set of listeners.
Absolutely.
I want to come back to those interview questions for a minute, because I think that's really going to be the heart of what makes this podcast so good. Questions like, tell us about a deal that changed your career. They force the guests to really think back to a specific moment and what they learned.
It's like you're zooming in on that one moment in time, right? And you see why it was so important.
Exactly. These questions are going to uncover the hidden gems that we might not hear otherwise. And then that one, what's one habit or mindset shift that contributed most to your success? It's pure gold.
Yeah, it's like they're asking for a shortcut,
Yeah.
but in a way that shows how much your mindset and habits matter.
It's about understanding what drives people who are successful, not just what they do, but how they think. So we've got these inspiring guests, thought-provoking questions, a solid branding strategy, and a smart marketing plan. Looks like this podcast has everything it takes.
Right, but that brings up the big question, did they actually manage to pull it off?
It's true. We've spent all this time looking at the blueprint, and we haven't even considered the final product.
Yeah, we've seen the architect's plans,
Yeah.
but did they build a skyscraper or did they end up with a shaky foundation?
I guess that's the cliffhanger, huh? It's funny. We've spent this whole deep dive talking about real estate triumphs, but
Yeah.
we haven't actually heard any of it.
It's true. We've been looking at the cover of the book, but we haven't actually read a single page. We can guess what's going to happen, who the characters are, but we don't know the story for sure.
And that's what I find so interesting. We've kind of set this challenge up for ourselves and our listeners.
Yeah.
We've seen the blueprint, but did they actually pull it off?
Right. Did Real Estate Triumphs live up to its name? Did they create a podcast that, actually delivers on everything they were going for?
I kind of like this. Maybe it could be a new thing we do.
Oh, you mean like a follow-up?
Yeah. We analyze the planning, and then we come back later and see how it turned out.
I like that.
Even without listening to Real Estate Triumphs, I think we've learned some interesting stuff today.
For sure.
What stands out to you?
I'd say for me, it's really all about focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real Estate Triumphs didn't try to please everyone. They found their people, and they really honed in on them.
Yeah.
From their guests to how they marketed it. And I think that's a really important lesson for anyone creating anything, really.
Yeah.
Podcast, blog, video, whatever. You got to know who you're talking to and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I also think we really saw the power of storytelling today.
Yeah.
The questions they came up with were so smart because they were designed to bring out those personal stories, the challenges, the successes.
Right, because we connect with stories, right?
Yeah.
And they make things easier to remember and relate to. Think about it. When you're trying to learn something new, do you remember the facts and figures or do you remember a good story?
A good story always sticks with you.
It makes you feel something, it makes a connection, and it makes whatever you're learning feel real.
And the last thing that really stood out to me was how important marketing and promotion are.
Oh, for sure.
It doesn't matter how good your content is if nobody knows about it, right?
Exactly.
And these guys, they had a plan. From the logo to the cover art
Yeah.
to putting it out there on social media, they knew how to get people to find their podcast.
It shows you that even the most creative stuff needs a plan. You can't just hope people will find you. You got to get out there.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, we're left with this big question mark hanging over real estate triumphs. Did they actually succeed?
Right.
I guess we'll leave that for everyone to think about.
Who knows? Maybe we'll come back to it someday.
Maybe we will. And hey, maybe this will inspire some of our listeners to make their own Triumphs podcasts.
Yeah, but in different areas.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what would a Triumphs podcast look like in science? Or technology? Or art?
Oh, that's a good one.
So many amazing stories out there waiting to be told. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another exciting exploration